Good morning, everybody. Orange J here with another War of the Visions video, and today we're going to take a look at the meta report for February in War of the Visions. Which units are being played the most by the top end guilds in Guild Wars? We're going to look at like the top 25 guilds, top 10 guilds, like we have been doing every month. See if young Helena is like, trending back down towards Earth a little bit, and if she is, what is coming up to replace her? Is it Great Swords? Is it Earth? Is it Evade? What's kind of coming along the lines? Now, I'm going to hit commence battle here and shamelessly claim a solo Mont for Baby Dollars Guild right here with Baby J Jr. the third to the fifth powers, second swing, but we're not going to worry about that. Instead, we're going to jump over here and take a look at the data. Now, what you're seeing on the screen here is January, and you saw an interesting thing start happening here towards the end of January. Young Helena, who had dominated the game in the meta for so long in the mages, was in the middle of a dive, right? If you look towards the end of that chart, you see her line on pretty much a continual trend down from, she was played all over the place at the beginning, but she was trending down towards the end of the month, and we wondered if that trend would continue. You also saw some lightning units dipping with Winter Raph and Alaya. Vivi and regular Raph were dipping along with Helena, and A2 down here at the bottom was cruising on upward. And you can see it's right when she came out, she was going to try to bring some great swords to relevance, and that's your top 25 guilds attack teams top 10 units at the end of last month. If we look at their defense teams, there was not as big of a drop. In fact, there was almost no drop to young Helena's play in defense. It was such a safe defense play where you can run these three mages. It's basically hard to deal with whatever team you want to throw at them. They're just so generically good on defense that was still the standard. In fact, that was usually what you were fighting in the top 25-ish all of last month. Now, if I said top 25-ish, because if we change the max guild rank to just top 5 and we see what that looked like, you could already begin to see the top 5 guilds in the game on defense adjusting their comps at the end of January. You see like Ice Howlet coming up with A2. You see Summer Glassy coming up in there. You see Shalze and some fire units and Great Sword Astrius. And if we switch the guild ranks here to top 5 at the end of last month, we saw kind of the same thing. In fact, young Helena had been on a dip since the beginning of last month when you're talking about the top 5 most competitive guilds in the game, and lightning teams were actually just dominating things. Astrius, Alaya, Winter, Raph, those were your best 3 units for the second half of January on Guild Wars offense for your top 5 teams. But look, there's A2. Right when she starts sneaking in, she starts sneaking in fast, and her rise was quick. So let's jump over to February, and here's what February looked like. Now, we're starting off here looking at the top 25 guilds, and you do see a stabilization towards at the beginning of February for young Helena, and she doesn't continue to fall off until the end of February. But there's A2, who is just closing the gap, and with A2, who is she kind of bringing with her? Well, some lightning units like Alaya and Astrius, who is also a great sword user. You do see Summer Glassy coming in there, and you also saw a little bit of wind and some Earth Evade. For Guild Wars defense, young Helena still just so easy to play, but then there's just this grouping of other units. In fact, young Helena's most common teammates, if we look down here towards the bottom of the list, your Vivi and your regular Raph were already towards the bottom of top 10 in Guild Wars defense, and A2, 2P, those near units that were really strong, were your second and third most played defense units by the end of the month, with Alaya the Alabaster, Wing of Destiny, Stern. Now, if we shift this to just looking at the top 5 guilds in the game, like the absolute cream of the crop, if you look at offense here, you see a crazy unit up there towards the top that I think a lot of folks who are more like just normal casually in the game wouldn't have expected, and that's Shalze. Shalze was just she's a staple in Guild Wars offense teams for the month of February. She was top 10 even at the beginning, but just rose in relevance throughout the month, and for a while even supplanted young Helena as number 1. Now, as we get to today, right, I went ahead and made the cutoff date the 5th of this month. Young Helena did overtake her again and is at the top, but there's a really interesting unit, Bart's, mixed in there at number 5 for like some follow-up attack damage. Then you see 2P and A2, those near units units continue to be really strong. Elia the Alabaster still seems just hard to push her out of the meta. She has been a staple forever. With the rise of 2P, you've seen King Bradley, Asterius the Erudite up there. You have greatsword units. He's still one of the top greatsword units in the game. Addison Rae has been relevant since she came out, and Summer Glassy has had the staying power that I think a lot of water players really wanted her to have. So there's your top 10 units for the top 5 guilds in the game on offense. Now, let's look at defense, right? There's that giant grouping of units that are 2nd through 9th, with young Helena being clear number 1. If we switch this to top 5, what kind of walls are the best guilds in the game running? Well, for the first part of February, it was still a lot of young Helena something, right? She was clearly number 1 for a really long time. You see A2 creeping up in relevance, and then this mix of other units at the bottom. But as we got to the end, as the map changed, notice on the 1st of this month, we had a map change. Okay, look who is currently sitting at the top of this list right here, Elia the Alabaster. She's followed up by 2P and Shalza, and how far down this list do you even have to go? Helena the Black Rose is 5th in Guild Wars defense. Now, that doesn't mean she fell off a cliff and is no longer relevant, but it is a nice little shakeup in my opinion. The top guilds in the game have moved off of playing that mage wall that dominated January. Like, here's the January mage wall right here. It's these 3 units that you see right here next to my mouse. That thing, if you were playing in competitive Guild Wars and you just played against this all the time, you could basically just build to beat it. Fast forward ahead a month, and it's a mix of things. Nothing is clearly dominating. Shalza and A2 had their like spike in power right here, and they kind of carried Asterius the Erudite up with them. But you see strike teams up here. You see evade units like 2P. I mean, Earth quasi evade is really hard to deal with. Bart's Addison Rae for light. Shalza just carrying some fire units up there with her. Like, who's this fire unit sneaking in towards the bottom? We have Alphonse, Ildira, Sweetheart Ildira. Yeah, that's right. She's actually right there on that list. That's not something probably a lot of people expected to see. So there you go. There's the unit breakdown. Now, if we want to get a little bit wider, we zoomed in and looked at the top 5 guilds. Let's say we wanted to look at the top 500 guilds, and that's about as much as this will do. You see just absolute domination in the top 10 from young Helena. She's clearly a unit that everyone who could pulled for. And so she is still, I mean, in fact, she's widened the gap between the 2nd most played unit, which is Sephiroth, and you see the 3rd and 4th played are still just her best friends. Now, A2 was very popular. You can see even at the beginning of February, people were playing her, and she did climb for the whole month. And so I do expect to see her continuing to climb. Maybe some people who were slow building her are finally finishing her up with the barracks. But the staples, Black Rose, Helena, Cloud, and Sephiroth, I mean, those are units that have just been a part of this game for a long time. And I think when you're somebody, and I'll put my camera back on the screen for a second as I got my 3 stars from this solo Mont. I think if you're the developers, right, it's a very important thing to make these hyper successful units that allow people to participate in the game for a really long time. I'm talking about units like Sephiroth. When he comes out and people are complaining that maybe he's a little bit too powerful, keep in mind that there's a whole lot of players that do not play every day. They come in, they play for a while during a collab, maybe 2 months, 3 months, something like that. They take a break. And if they take a couple month break and come back for the next collab, it's really nice for them if that big collab unit they pulled is still good. And Sephiroth has proved to be that since he came out. Cloud is still at least good enough to play. Black Rose Helena, I mean, look, you're pushing it with Black Rose Helena in the top 10, if I'm being real. In my opinion, she's being carried, and I'll throw it back on the screen. In my opinion, she is the fill-in for people who don't have like Raph or Vivi in a young Helena mage team or something like that. But Flagbearer Glassy's been really popular, and A2, I expect her to be one of those units as well as 2P. I don't think as many people pulled 2P, but I don't see her falling off for a while. If we look at Guild Wars defense for the top 500 guilds, that'll be something fun to look at. it looks a lot the same, right? Your top 4 are still all there. Your bottom ones, you see an interesting mix in of like the King Mont. He works his way in there. He's just a good tank. And he's, again, a tank a lot of people pulled. You work him in there. He can basically splash into almost anything you kind of want to play, especially the top 500 guilds. Playing a tank does help your Guild Wars defense. If you're in that, like, 100 and something rank, make your team hard to kill. That's never a bad idea. But Cloud, Sephiroth, still hanging out there, still staples of the game. And you can expand if you, this is WoTVstats.com. If you want to use this site, you can expand this out to say, like, I want to see the top 25 units played. In my opinion, it gets a little bit hard to look at this point. Like, that's just a whole lot of pictures jammed together. It does show you the separation, though, that those top 4 units have from the rest of them. We can look at offense and defense. A2, look at that. That's a good rise. In my opinion, they nailed it with the near collab. This last near collab was great. We got an accessory that gave us AoE resist to go along with the accessory that gave us single target resist. Well done. Then A2 and 2P both being good, but not meta breaking units. Even if they are kind of defining the meta in their own slight way, they never broke it. You still got to play your old stuff. And if you didn't want to jump into near, you didn't feel like you necessarily had to. Just farm out the accessories and call it a day. So, hey, the game feels good at in the top 25 right now. That's where our guild hangs out, and I've enjoyed Guild Wars there. As in Baby Dollars, my new player guild, we are currently, in bronze, whatever it is, bronze 3, that we're beginning the climb, right? So we do find some, today, the guild we're playing is at least playing back, but these bottom tiers are full of some guilds that are like not active or not even trying. And you can see I got a solo Mont for 3 stars after my first swing. So there we go. That's the meta report. Let me know how you guys feel about that. Young Helena, if you got her, you're still getting run out of her. Let me know if you've moved off of her and have some other like fun team that you're running. I'm loving King Elda on my alt, and I'm really looking forward to playing Dario when I get my wind kind of put together and my vision cards put together for him. But it's a while as a new player to do that. All right. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.